Thank you very much, Executive Director Mr. Rajendra Rattu, and all the distinguished panelists who have joined this panel. Ruma Devi ji, Vidita Sahai ji, and Kira ji, and also strong. We are really delighted to have this very nice panel who have gone through different experiences in and so they would actually talk about this what inequality means and how they experience and how it affects individually. जब हम बहुत बात करते हैं तो बड़े मैक्रो लेवल पे बात होती है एंड मैक्रो लेवल पे जहाँ हम एग्रीगेट्स की बात करते हैं तो एक नंबर रहता है। जैसे मैं कह दूँ कि 10% लोग जो हमारे यहाँ हैं वो इस तरह से फिजिकली चैलेंज हैं, तो 10% हमें कुछ अफेक्ट नहीं करता। 10% का कोई इमोशन नहीं है, स्टैटिस्टिक्स है एंड स्टैटिस्टिक्स डजंट हैव एनी इमोशन। सो इमोशंस नहीं होगा तो अट्रैक्शन नहीं होगा, अट्रैक्शन नहीं होगा तो अफेक्शन नहीं होगा, अफेक्शन नहीं होगा तो परसेप्शन नहीं होगा, परसेप्शन नहीं होगा तो रियलिटी नहीं। सो एक दूरी बनती जाती है चीज़ों से और विषय एक विषय की तरह रहता है। विषय एक पूरी जो समग्रता में जिसकी बात करते हैं वो दिखता नहीं है। तो आज जो महत्वपूर्ण विषय है इनइक्वालिटी टू एम्पावरमेंट, हर घर में वो इसकी प्रथा है, कोई ऐसा घर नहीं है जो इस चीज़ से वंचित है। एवरी हाउस हैज दिस काइंड ऑफ अ नैरेटिव्स ऑफ इनइक्वालिटी। दे आर प्रैक्टिसिंग, दे आर इग्नोरेंटली प्रैक्टिसिंग, या प्रैक्टिसिंग कर रहे हैं बाय डिजाइन, और एक रूढ़िवादिता है जो ईगो ऑफ पेट्रियार्की। जो ईगो ऑफ पेट्रियार्की है वो हमें जो डिजास्टर के टाइम में बात करते हैं वो इनइक्वालिटी ऑफ रिस्क भी है। इनइक्वालिटी ऑफ रिस्क में हर व्यक्ति का रिस्क का भी अलग अलग एक्सपोजर है और उस एक्सपोजर के हिसाब से हमने देखा कि इनइक्वालिटी को कैसे, इसमें आज हम बात करें कि एम्पावरमेंट की बात है। बहुत पहले 1776 की बात है, 1776 में ग्लोबल लेवल पे रूसो एक फिलोसोफर थे, पहली बार उन्होंने इनइक्वालिटी के बारे में चर्चा की। एक एकेडमिक वर्ल्ड में इस पर डिस्कशन एंड डिस्कोर्स होना चाहिए। लेकिन हमारे यहाँ देखेंगे हमारी कई जो वेद हैं, पुराण हैं, इसमें चर्चा हुई है। जो साहित्यिक परिवेश है हमारा, जो धार्मिक परिवेश है, हर परिवेश में इनइक्वालिटी के बारे में चर्चा हुई है। लेकिन एक पैटर्न भी फिक्स किया है समाज ने कि हम किस तरह से जिए। पुरुषों के लिए कुछ मानदंड है और कुछ महिलाओं के लिए भी मापदंड है। जो भी मापदंड तय किए गए हमारे समाज में, उसका प्रभाव कभी विरूपित प्रभाव है, कभी बहुत ही डिस्टॉर्टेड उसका इम्पैक्ट है। तो ये बात समझ में नहीं आती है कि हमारे देश में जब हम परिवार में हमेशा परिकल्पना करते हैं कि जब परिवार की जो पूरी परिकल्पना हुई वो इसीलिए हुई कि हम एक दूसरे के साथ जीते हैं, एक दूसरे के साथ मरते हैं। एक कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ ऑल्टरिज्म है। उस कॉन्सेप्ट में जब हम देखते हैं विविधता बहुत है, एक दूसरे के साथ जीना मरना, एक दूसरे के लिए काम करना है, सारी विविधता वही शुरू हो जाती है परिवार में। और सारी विविधता जो कहते हैं ऑफिशियल पिक्चर जो बना के क्यों रहते हैं परिवार में, कभी प्रश्न नहीं करते हैं और जो प्रैक्टिसेस हैं उसको भी नहीं लाते। तो हमारे जो पैनलिस्ट ये प्रैक्टिस को भी लाएंगे, देखिए क्या विविधता इनके जीवन पे क्या प्रभाव पड़ा। आपके घर में आपकी छोटी बहन किस तरह से रही या बड़ी बहन किस तरह से रही, और आप एक पुरुष होने के नाते जो एक भगवान का दिया हुआ देता, आपने डिसाइड नहीं किया कि आपका सेक्स क्या होगा, आप मेल होंगे या फीमेल होंगे, इसमें आपका कोई रोल नहीं है। एक नेचुरल प्रोसेस है, उस प्रोसेस में डिटर्मिन हो गया। लेकिन अब बाद में आप महिला जो मेल और फीमेल है वो मेन और वुमेन बन जाते हैं। मेन और वुमेन और मेल और फीमेल में बस एक डिफरेंस यही मैं कहता हूँ कि सामाजिक जो प्रक्रिया है, जो प्रोसेस है, उस प्रोसेस में हम आगे डालते हैं। उसका इम्पैक्ट ये पड़ता है कि हम डिस्क्रिमिनेट करना शुरू कर देते हैं और उसके साथ उसके जो प्रभाव होते हैं वो बड़े दूरगामी प्रभाव होते हैं, जो व्यक्ति को एक जनरेशन से दूसरे जनरेशन तक फेस करना पड़ता है। तो आज का जो परिवेश है, आज इस इनइक्वालिटी के बारे में जब हम बात कर रहे हैं तो हम ये भी याद करें कि रूसो ने क्यों कहा कि नेचुरल इनइक्वालिटी होती है और एथिकल इनइक्वालिटी होती है। तो एथिकल ज़्यादा हमारे लिए महत्वपूर्ण है कि जो जन्म से मिला है उसमें हमारा कोई रोक नहीं है। वी कांट डू मच बट वी आर ऑर्डेन्ड बाय द बर्थ। बट नाउ जो फिजिकल और सोशल प्रोसेस पर जब हम जाते हैं तो देयर वी कैन डू समथिंग एंड वेयर वी हैव एक्चुअली परपेचुएटेड इनइक्वालिटी ऑल ओवर। So how to break those barriers? What are those barriers? जो कहते हैं उनकी जवानी हम उन्हीं के मुख से सुनेंगे। तो ऐसे में जो रूमा देवी जी हैं, मैं पहले उनको रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा। तो आप इनकी जो जर्नी है बड़ी इसी तरह की जर्नी है, परिवार में, समाज में, समाज की जो परिभाषा है कोऑपरेशन। एवरीबॉडी लिव्स इन दिस सोसाइटी बिकॉज वी कोऑपरेट विद ईच अदर। सो तीसरी जो बात हो गई कि हमारी जो इन दोनों जगह से इंटरेक्शन का कैसे हुआ, आप इनसे सुनेंगे। तो रूमा देवी जी, आपका हृदय से हम आभार प्रकट करते हैं कि आप आई और इस पैनल में आप अपने विचार रखते हैं। पहले इनके लिए तालियां हो जाए और एक जोरदार तालियां सभी पैनलिस्ट के लिए। थोड़ी और तेज तालियां आपको खाना वाला खाना। थैंक यू, थैंक यू। बिलोंग्स टू बाड़मेर और उसकी बाकी कहानियाँ देखेंगे। और एक जर्नी है, एक कॉमन, एक बहुत छोटे से साधारण परिवार से when she started her life and where she is now and how she is helping. आपदा प्रबंधन में we always say that compassion is the drive for disaster management and that she is a real living example that how compassion can actually take that to action for many. So
ये सुई चुभ जाएगी, लग जाएगी, तेरे से नहीं होगा। लेकिन जब भी दादी वो काम करते करते छोड़ के बाहर जाते तो मैं पीछे से करने लग जाती थी। हम ये बैग बना रहे थे, लेकिन अब प्रॉब्लम ये थी कि हम 10 महिलाएं हैं और इतना काम कहाँ से आएगा। हमें 3 दिन का ऑर्डर का काम दिया गया कि आप ये करके लेके आइए। वो यही बोलते कि ये काम नहीं करेगी, पता नहीं आप कौन है। दो 3 दिन में हमारी 10 से 15 हजार रुपए की सेल हो गई थी। तो वहां से हमें हिम्मत मिल गई थी कि नेक्स्ट एग्जीबिशन था, पूरी 11 लाख के हम सेल करके आए थे। वहाँ पे भी हम गए तो उन्होंने बोला कि रोमा जी आपका ये काम नहीं है, यहाँ पे ये डिजाइनरों का काम है, ये आप जो छोड़ दीजिए। मेरे जीवन का पलट द मोमेंट वो था जब मैंने पहली बार फैशन शो करने में भाग लिया था। जैसे ही हमारा प्रोडक्ट रैंप पे आए तो सारी ऑडियंस, डिजाइनर सब खड़े होके तालियां बजाई। मेरे जीवन का तूफानी मोमेंट वो था जब मुझे नारी शक्ति पुरस्कार राष्ट्रपति जी के हाथों से मिला। मैंने उसी पल यही सोचा कि ये सम्मान मेरी अकेली का नहीं है, ये भारतीय वो नारी जो काम में आगे आती है और अपने पैरों पे खड़ी है, ये उन सबके लिए है। अपनी यहाँ की जो कला है उसको अपन अगर रोजगार से जोड़ रहे हैं तो कला भी जिंदा रहेगी, लोगों को रोजगार भी मिलेगा। जो पलट दे देश की पहचान, वो हर हाथ तूफान।
के काम के लिए यूनिवर्सिटी ने इनको ऑनररी डॉक्टरेट की भी उपाधि दी। आपको लग रहा होगा कि ये तो क्लास बहुत पहले छोड़ दी स्कूल, लेकिन डॉक्टरेट कैसे है, तो थोड़ा बताना चाहता था।
नमस्कार, राम राम सर। जैसे आपने देखा अभी वीडियो में, तो मैं राजस्थान बाड़मेर से हूँ। बाड़मेर पूरा डेजर्ट एरिया है, वहाँ पे इकट्ठे गांव में घर नहीं होते हैं, रेत के टिब्बों के बीच में दूर दूर ढाड़ियाँ हैं। उन ढाड़ियों में जो बहनें रहती है उनके पास में इनकम का कोई सोर्स नहीं है, वहाँ पे ऐसा कोई रोजगार नहीं है कि वो काम करके पैसे कमा सके। तो वहीं से मैं आती हूँ। मेरी भी स्थिति कुछ ऐसी थी। जब मैं 4 साल की थी तो मेरी मदर की डेथ हो गई थी। मेरी 8वीं में स्कूल छूट गई। स्कूल छूटने के बाद में घर का काम, पानी लाने का काम, वहाँ पे पानी की बहुत दिक्कत थी। तो मेरे पास में बैलगाड़ी थी और बैलगाड़ी से पानी लाने का काम करती थी। और जब भी मुझे टाइम मिलता तो मैं दादी के साथ में बैठ के कसीदाकारी का काम जरूर सीखती थी। अब वहाँ पे कसीदाकारी का काम हर घर में होता था, क्योंकि पहनने के लिए कपड़े भी हाथ से बनाए जाते थे। जो भेड़ की ऊन होती थी उसको कताई बुनाई करके उसके ऊपर एम्ब्रॉयडरी का काम था, वो हाथ से करते थे। तो पहनने के लिए धाबले, ओढ़ने के लिए लूका, पट्टू, जो शॉल होती है ना ओढ़ने के लिए, वो सारे हाथ का काम होता था। और माँ अपनी बेटी को अपने हाथ से कुछ ऐसा बना के देती थी, जब बेटी को माँ की याद आती तो वो अपनी सिंदूर खोल के माँ के हाथ के बने हुए प्रोडक्ट को देख के ही तसल्ली करती थी, क्योंकि पहले फोन नहीं होते थे, अब तो फोन हो गए, उन चीज़ों की जरूरत नहीं है। तो ऐसी स्थिति में जब मेरी दादी घर पे काम करती थी तो मैं भी साथ में बैठ के उनके साथ में सीखती। दादी सुई हाथ में नहीं देती थी कि अभी बहुत छोटी हो, सुई हाथ में लग जाएगी। तो जब दादी छोड़ के बाहर जाती तो मैं लेके बैठ जाती थी। तो इस तरीके से वो एम्ब्रॉयडरी मैंने सीखा। उसके बाद में मैं जब 17 साल की थी तो मेरी शादी हो गई। शादी के बाद भी घर की आर्थिक स्थिति ठीक नहीं थी, क्योंकि मेरी 8वीं में स्कूल छूट गई थी और मेरे हस्बैंड की 5वीं में। तो ऐसा कोई स्थायी रोजगार हमारे पास था नहीं, जैसे तैसे करके घर चल रहा था। और शादी के 1.5 साल बाद में जब फर्स्ट बेबी हुआ, उसको सांस में प्रॉब्लम थी और अच्छे हॉस्पिटल ले जाने की जरूरत थी, वो हम नहीं लेके जा पाए, उसको नहीं बचा पाए। तो उस टाइम मुझे लगा कि जिंदगी में जी के क्या करना है। कई ऐसे नेगेटिव थॉट आने लगे कि पहले माँ को खुद या फिर बच्चे को। लेकिन उसी टाइम मेरे दिमाग में आया कि ऐसे जिंदगी से हार मानने से अच्छा मैं कुछ काम करूं जिससे मेरा घर भी चले और मेरा मन भी लगा रहे। लेकिन एक गांव की कम पढ़ी लिखी महिला जो घर से कभी बाहर नहीं निकली, घूंघट में रहती, घर के अंदर ही, उनके पास में रोजगार कहाँ से आएगा, क्या काम करूंगी, कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा था। तभी सोचा कि जो महिलाएं मायके बैग हाथ में लिया, एम्ब्रॉयडरी का काम शुरू किया, लेकिन जो बैग की स्टिचिंग थी वो मशीन से होनी थी और मशीन मेरे पास थी नहीं, ना मैं खरीदने के लिए सक्षम थी। तो उस टाइम मैंने सोचा कि अब मेरे से नहीं होगा। फिर दिमाग में आया कि जो परेशानियां मुझे हो रही है वो मेरी और बहनों को भी तो होती होगी ना, जैसे मैं नहीं बोल पा रही हूँ वो भी नहीं बोल पा रही है, क्यों ना मैं उनसे जाके बात करूँ। तो मैंने अड़ोस पड़ोस की महिलाओं से बात की और फिर हमने 10 महिलाओं ने मिलकर एक सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप बनाया और 100 रुपए इकट्ठा करके एक सेकेंड हैंड मशीन खरीदी और वहां से हमने काम की शुरुआत की। लेकिन परेशानियां यहाँ पे खत्म होने वाली नहीं थी, क्योंकि अब हम 10 महिलाएं हो चुकी है, 10 महिलाओं के लिए काम कहाँ से आएगा। तो फिर मैंने इधर उधर काम के बारे में पूछा, तो ग्रामीण विकास योजना संस्थान है जिसकी मैं अभी प्रेसिडेंट हूँ, तो उनके बारे में किसी ने बताया कि ये महिलाओं के लिए काम करती है, आप शायद उनके पास जाओगे तो आपको मदद मिलेगी। तो हम 2-3 महिलाएं इकट्ठे होकर वहाँ गए, वहाँ पे संस्थापक के विक्रम जी उनसे जाके मिले। हमने कहा हमारा समूह है, हमें काम करना है, हमें काम की जरूरत है, आपके बारे में किसी ने बताया तो हम आए। तो वो एकदम से देख के शॉक हो गए कि महिलाओं को काम से जोड़ने का हम इतना प्रयास करें लेकिन महिलाएं आगे नहीं आ रही, और आज महिलाएं खुद आगे बोल रही है कि हमें काम करना है। तो उन्होंने सोचा ये आ जाए कल नहीं आएंगे, उनको विश्वास नहीं हुआ। लेकिन मैंने कहा नहीं, हमें काम करना है, कैसे करना है ये आप बताइए। तो फिर हमें सैम्पलिंग का काम दिया गया, वो सैंपल अच्छे बने तो फिर हमें ऑर्डर का काम दिया कि ये करके लेके आइए। 3 दिन का काम था। हमें इतनी खुशी हुई कि पहली बार हमारे हाथ में कोई काम आया था। हम घर जाके काम पे लगे और सुबह वापस गए तो उनको लगा कि ये कल शाम को लेके गए, अभी वापस आ गए तो काम हुआ नहीं। तो मैंने कहा नहीं, ऐसा नहीं, हम काम पूरा करके लेके आएंगे। ये कैसे पॉसिबल हो सकता है, 3 दिन का काम एक ही रात में कैसे हो गया। मुझे खुशी इतनी थी कि पूरी रात बैठ के काम किया था और सुबह हम पूरा करके लेके आए। तब उनको लगा कि वास्तव में ये काम करना चाहते हैं। तो फिर हमारी मीटिंग हुई कि हम किस तरीके से ऐसा काम करें जिससे हमारी और जो बहनें हैं दूर दराज गाँव में बैठी है उनके लिए भी हम काम कर सके। तो किसी ने बताया कि आप एग्जीबिशन करिए, एग्जीबिशन के थ्रू आप प्रोडक्ट जो वो सेल होंगे तो आपको हैंड टू हैंड पैसे भी मिल जाएंगे। मैंने कहा एग्जीबिशन होते कहाँ है, बाड़मेर में तो कोई खरीदेगा नहीं। तो बोला कि नहीं, मेट्रो सिटी जहाँ दिल्ली, बॉम्बे, बेंगलोर ऐसी जगह पे आप एग्जीबिशन करोगे तो वहाँ पे आपके प्रोडक्ट सेल होंगे। मैंने कहा बाड़मेर डिस्ट्रिक्ट हेडक्वार्टर तक तो हम कभी गए नहीं, मेट्रो सिटीज में हम कैसे भेज जाएंगे और भेजेंगे घर वाले। तो मैंने कहा ये तो सपना हम छोड़ ही देते हैं यही। लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं क्लिक हो गया था कि नहीं, ऐसा करना चाहिए। तो जैसे जैसे करके हमने सोचा, हमने कुछ प्रोडक्ट बनाए, कुशन कवर, बेड कवर, कर्टन्स। उसके बाद में काफी मुश्किल से हमें एक एग्जीबिशन करने का मौका मिला था रवि हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्लब दिल्ली में ही, और 2010 में जो वो फर्स्ट टाइम हमारा बाड़मेर से बाहर निकलने का समय था। कट्टे में सामान भरा, ट्रेन के लोकल डब्बे में बैठ के हम दिल्ली पहुंचे। बहुत घबराहट हो रही थी क्योंकि हमें तो सिर्फ मारवाड़ी आती, हिंदी भी नहीं आती, हम लोगों से कैसे बात करेंगे, हमारा प्रोडक्ट कोई पसंद करेगा या नहीं करेगा। तो ऐसे कई सारे विचार आ रहे थे। लेकिन जब हमने हमारा बूथ लगाया और जो कस्टमर है वो ज्यादातर हमारी लेडीज है, तो वो समझ चुकी थी कि ये गाँव से आए हैं, घबरा रहे हैं। बड़े प्यार से बात किया, बेटा आपने इतने सुंदर प्रोडक्ट हाथ से बनाए या मशीन से। तो हमने कहा नहीं, ये तो हमारा पूरा हाथ का काम है। तो जो 3 दिन की एग्जीबिशन थी उसमें हमारी 10 से 15 हजार रुपए की सेल हो गई और वहां से हमें हिम्मत मिल गई कि अब हमें वापस जाके नेक्स्ट एग्जीबिशन के लिए अच्छी तैयारी करनी है। फिर गांव गांव घर घर जाके महिलाओं को काम के प्रति मोटिवेट करना शुरू किया, क्योंकि इतना इजी नहीं था महिलाओं से मिलना भी। एक तो वहाँ पे पूरा डेजर्ट एरिया, सड़क नहीं है कि गाड़ी में चढ़ के चले गए, पैदल जाना, उसके बाद पीने के लिए पानी नहीं। घर वालों के कई तरह के क्वेश्चन होते थे कि आप कौन है, कहाँ से आए हैं, हमारी महिलाओं को क्या सिखा के जाएंगे, कल ये हमारा कहना मानेगी या नहीं मानेगी, कई तरह के क्वेश्चन होते थे। तो लगता है कि इतनी मुश्किल से हम यहाँ पहुंचे और हमें घर में भी नहीं इन्वाइट कर रहे हैं, तो हम क्यों कर रहे हैं, छोड़ दें। लेकिन फिर जब महिलाओं से मिलने की कोशिश करते हैं और उनसे मिलते हैं तो लगता कि नहीं, काम की जरूरत महिलाओं को है। तो फिर उनके घर वालों को समझाते कि नहीं, इनको कहीं नहीं जाना पड़ेगा, ये घर का पूरा काम करेगी, जो भी इनको घर में 2-3 घंटे टाइम मिलेगा उसमें ये काम करके देगी। तो ऐसे करके कुछ बहनों को साथ में जोड़ा और नेक्स्ट एग्जीबिशन की हमने अच्छी तैयारी की। जब हम नेक्स्ट एग्जीबिशन में आए तो हमारी 10-15 हजार रुपये की सेल नहीं हुई थी, 50 हजार की भी नहीं हुई थी, 5 लाख की भी नहीं हुई थी, फिर 11 लाख की सेल। अब हमने ठान लिया कि अब हमें इसमें नवाचार करना है, हमें और काम को बढ़ाना है। तो पूरे इंडिया के जो हैंडलूम का फैब्रिक है, जैसे मूंगा, मटका, चंदेरी, महेश्वरी, मंगलगिरी, ऐसे फैब्रिक लेके हमने गारमेंट्स बनाने शुरू किए, क्योंकि पहनने के लिए कपड़े ज्यादा खरीदते हैं। हमने ये सोचा कि घर के लिए तो जो सामान लेते हैं वो तो साल में एक बार चेंज होता है, लेकिन पहनने के लिए तो हर रोज नए चाहिए होते हैं। तो यही सोच के हमने साड़ी कुर्ते दुपट्टे ये बनाने शुरू किए। अब एप्लिक में प्रोडक्ट पहने हुए कैसे लगेंगे लोगों को ज्यादा समझ में नहीं आ रहा था, क्योंकि इस जो साड़ी बनाई, हम साड़ी नहीं पहनते, तो हमने फर्स्ट बार साड़ी बनाई तो उल्टे पल्लू की बना दी थी। वो आज भी मेरे पास पड़ी है, लेकिन कस्टमर ने देखा तो बोला कि इतनी सुंदर बनी है और पल्लू उल्टा है। उसके बाद में हमने वो सही किया, लेकिन अब प्रॉब्लम थी कि लोगों को समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, तो कैसे करें। तो किसी ने बोला कि आप फैशन शो करिए। अब फैशन शो के तो नाम से सीखती कि हम क्यों फैशन शो करें। फैशन शो करना मतलब छोटे कपड़े पहनना, ऐसा फैशन शो होता है। लेकिन उसके बाद में हमें रियलाइज हुआ कि नहीं, हमें फैशन शो करना चाहिए, जो हेरिटेज फैशन शो होता है वो करना चाहिए। लेकिन एक डिजाइन आर्टिजन को फैशन शो करने का मौका कहाँ मिलेगा। तो हमने काफ़ी कोशिश की। उसके बाद में राजस्थान हेरिटेज वीक हो रहा था जयपुर में, वहाँ से हमने जाके रिक्वेस्ट किया कि आप हमें मौका दीजिए, हमें फैशन शो करना है। तो उन्होंने बोला कि यहाँ पे डिजाइनर्स लोग, अवॉर्डी लोग वो आ रहे हैं, आप कैसे फैशन शो कर पाओगे, आप तो एक आर्टिजन हो। लेकिन वहाँ पे मैंने जिद नहीं छोड़ी, मैंने कहा आप एक बार हमें मौका दीजिए। तो वहाँ से मौका मिला, लेकिन वास्तव में प्रॉब्लम ये थी कि इतने बड़े डिजाइनर्स आ रहे हैं, बिबी रसेल, हेमंत त्रिवेदी, अब्रमन ठाकुर, अलमंडा, इनके साथ में हमारा कलेक्शन कैसे बनाएंगे हम। तो हमने सोचा कि हम और बड़े एनजीओ से हेल्प मांगते हैं। तो वहाँ जाके हमने बोला कि हमें ये फैशन शो करना है, इसमें आपकी हेल्प चाहिए। तो उन्होंने भी यही बोला कि रुमा जी ये आपका लेवल नहीं है, ये जिद आप छोड़ दीजिए, आप जहाँ काम करें वही आपके लिए बेटर है, ये जिद छोड़ दीजिए। बड़ा दुख हुआ, रोना भी आया। मैंने कहा कोई मदद करने वाला नहीं है, लेकिन ये फैशन शो मैं जरूर करूँगी। जैसा मुझे समझ में आया मैंने कॉस्ट्यूम डिजाइन किया, कलर थीम लिया, मेरा कलेक्शन तैयार किया। डर लग रहा था कि किसी को पसंद नहीं आएगा, लेकिन मुझे विश्वास था कि मुझे पसंद है तो कुछ जरूर आएगा। तो यही सोच के मैं जयपुर पहुंची, हमारे प्रोडक्ट रैंप पे आए। जैसे ही पूरी ऑडियंस और डिजाइनर्स खड़े होकर ताली बजाई, और वही 5 डिजाइनर बाड़मेर पहुंचे, अपना नेक्स्ट शो के लिए कलेक्शन बनाया बाड़मेर से। उसके बाद ट्राइबेट की मैं गुडविल मिनिस्टर रही, और ट्राइबल आर्टिजनों की कला को प्रमोट करने के लिए हमने पूरी इंडिया में अलग अलग जगह पे फैशन शो ऑर्गेनाइज करवाए। और उसके बाद में TFI का डिजाइनर ऑफ द ईयर का अवार्ड भी मैंने जीता, जिसमें पेरिस का टूर मिला था। इसके बाद में मुझे लगा कि हम इंडिया में तो कर ही रहे हैं, क्यों ना इंटरनेशनल करें, जिससे और बहनों को काम मिलेगा। तो ये सोचा था। उसी टाइम मेरे पास में जर्मनी एम टेक्सटाइल करके एक बहुत बड़ा फ्रेंडमेंट मैसेज में फेयर होता है, वहाँ से मेल आया कि इंडिया से मात्र एक एनजीओ को हमने सेलेक्ट किया है जिनको हम फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट बूथ दे रहे हैं। मैंने कहा मैंने सोचा ही था कि बाहर जाना है, लेकिन सीधा जर्मनी जाएंगे ये बिल्कुल नहीं सोचा। तो वहाँ गए, यहाँ पे काफी लोगों से बातचीत हुआ कि वहाँ का वेदर कैसा है। दिसंबर का महीना था तो वहाँ पे ठंड बहुत है। किसी ने बोला कि आप गर्म कपड़े लेके जाना, हम वेजिटेरियन है, तो किसी ने बोला कि आप खाने की चीजें कुछ साथ में रखना। तो हमने यहाँ से आटा, सब्जी, मसाला सब साथ में लेके गए। वहाँ पर जाके रोटियां भी बनाई, खाई और वहाँ के लोगों को भी खिलाई। जब उन्होंने खाई तो बोला कि हमने फर्स्ट बार ताजी ब्रेड खाई है। मैंने कहा ये रोटी नहीं खाते तो वहाँ का जो एक्सपीरियंस था मेरा बहुत अच्छा था। मैं जब मेरे बूथ पे बैठी काम कर रही थी तो एक महिलाओं का ग्रुप आया और मेरे पास में आके खड़ी हुई। मैंने उनके सामने देखा तो उनकी आंखों में आंसू थे। मैंने कहा क्या हुआ। तो उन्होंने बोला कि आप इंडिया से हैं। हाँ, मैंने तो बताया कि इनको कैसे पता चल गया मैं इंडिया से हूँ। तो उन्होंने बोला कि आपके पहनावे को देख के मुझे लगा आप इंडिया से हो, और हमारा मुल्क है वो हमें याद आ गया। किसी की नानी इंडिया से थी, किसी की दादी इंडिया से थी। तो उन्होंने बोला कि हमें हमारा मुल्क याद आ गया। मुझे इतना गर्व हुआ कि मुझे नहीं बताना पड़ा कि मैं इंडिया से हूँ। अपने पहनावे में अपने आप बता दिया कि मैं इंडिया से हूँ। उसके बाद मैंने ये ठान लिया कि मैं मेरा पहनावा काफी सही है। उसके बाद की यात्रा है वो काफ़ी लंबी रही। काफ़ी कंट्रीज में हमने फैशन शोज किए, हमने एग्जीबिशंस किए। और इसी बीच में जब मुझे राष्ट्रपति जी के हाथों से अवार्ड मिला, मैं ग्रेटर नोएडा में एक्सपो मार्ट में मेरा एग्जीबिशन था, वहाँ बैठी थी और मेरे पास में कॉल आया कि हम आपको नारी शक्ति पुरस्कार के लिए सिलेक्ट करते हैं। मुझे विश्वास नहीं हुआ कि मुझे नारी शक्ति पुरस्कार के लिए सिलेक्ट किया गया है। लेकिन मैं ये पुरस्कार है जो पुरस्कार मिलता है ये हमें और मोटिवेट करता है और नई जिम्मेदारियां देता है। मैं यही सोचती हूँ। और ये पुरस्कार मेरी अकेली का नहीं मानती मैं, जो मेरे साथ में 30,000 महिलाओं की टीम है, उन सभी की मेहनत की बदौलत ये जो पुरस्कार मिले हैं। तो मैं सोचती हूँ कि हर महिला ऐसा संघर्ष करे, आगे आए और ऐसे ही पुरस्कार वो लेती है। इसी बीच में मुझे हार्वर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी से इन्विटेशन आया कि हम हमारे एनुअल फंक्शन में एज ए स्पीकर के तौर पे आपको इन्वाइट करते हैं। मैंने कहा ना तो मैं ऐसी पढ़ पाई, न कॉलेज के बारे में सोचा, मैं हॉस्पिटल में जाके क्या करूँगी। 1 महीने तक हमने जवाब नहीं दिया। उनका वापस मेल आया कि हम आपको इन्वाइट कर रहे हैं, आपको प्लेटफॉर्म दे रहे हैं। हमारे यहाँ के जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं वो इंडिया के बारे में तो जानते हैं, दिल्ली मुंबई ऐसी जगह के बारे में जानते हैं, लेकिन रूरल एरिया में क्या हो रहा है वो नहीं जानते, तो इसलिए हम आपको इन्वाइट कर रहे हैं। तो उसमें एक चैलेंज ये था कि टिकट है वो खुद को लेके आना है। अब जो हॉरर में जाएंगे वो तो सक्षम होंगे, वो तो अपनी टिकट अपने आप लेके जाएंगे, लेकिन मैंने कहा मैं 10 लाख रुपए खर्च करके वहां जाऊंगी तो यहाँ काम कैसे करूंगी। मैंने कहा मुझे नहीं जाना। तो उसी टाइम मुझे जानकी देवी बजाज पुरस्कार मिल रहा था बॉम्बे में, और जब बजाज ग्रुप को पता चला कि इतना अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म मिला हुआ है और ये छोटे जा नहीं रहे हैं, वो कह रहे हैं हमारे बच्चों को एडमिशन नहीं मिलता और आप नहीं जा रहे हो, हम आपकी टिकट बनाते हैं, आप जाइए। तो इस तरीके से हमें वहाँ जाने की टिकट बनी, वहाँ का रहने का अरेंजमेंट हुआ, और वहाँ जाने के बाद में जो 1 दिन का प्रोग्राम था वो 3 दिन चला। हार्वर्ड के बच्चों ने सुई धागा पकड़ा, उन्होंने काम किया, पूरा दिन वर्कशॉप लिया, बड़ा इंटरेस्ट दिखाया, और उसके बाद में मेरी स्पीच थी दूसरे दिन, और तीसरे दिन भारतीय दूतावास में प्रोग्राम रखा गया। काफी सारी यूनिवर्सिटीज के प्रोफेसर लोगों को बुलाया, और जब उन्होंने यहाँ की कला के बारे में सोचा समझा तो बोला कि हम यहाँ से स्टूडेंट्स भेजेंगे रिसर्च के लिए और वहाँ की कला को यहाँ के सिलेबस में शामिल करेंगे। तो मैंने कहा ये इतना बड़ा मौका मैं छोड़ रही थी, हालांकि उसके बाद कोविड आ गया तो ये अभी काम पेंडिंग ही है, उम्मीद है हो जाएगा। तो इस तरीके से जो ये जर्नी है मेरी 15 साल की, बोलने में आधे घंटे में तो नहीं बता सकते पूरे, क्योंकि जो स्ट्रगल किया है वो बहुत लंबा था, लेकिन मैं ये सोचती हूँ कि जब भी हमारे सामने कोई ऐसी स्थिति आती है, परेशानी आती है, तो हमें कुछ नया सिखा के जाती है। जिस तरीके से कोविड आया, तो कोविड ये कोई आपदा से कम नहीं था, पूरे वर्ल्ड की आपदा थी। सब लोगों ने इससे फेस करके वो भी समय निकाला। तो उस टाइम दिल्ली में भी स्थिति खराब थी, तो बाड़मेर की आप सोच सकते हैं कि किस तरीके से वहाँ की स्थिति होगी। वहाँ पे ऑक्सीजन की कमी थी, ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर नहीं थे, कॉन्स्टेंटर नहीं थे, जो वो खून पतला करने वाले इंजेक्शन आते वो नहीं थे। तो कलेक्टर साहब और सीएमएसओ ने लेटर भेजा कि रूमा जी आप कुछ कर सकते हैं इसमें। तो उस टाइम, उससे पहले मैंने मेडिकल फील्ड में कोई काम नहीं किया था, मेरा कोई एक्सपीरियंस नहीं था, लेकिन तुरंत प्रभाव से 3.5 करोड़ के इंस्ट्रूमेंट हमारे बाड़मेर तक पहुंचे। तो जैसे आपदाएं आती है तो वो भी कुछ नया सिखा के ही जाती है। तो इस तरीके से अपन सबको एक्टिव रहना बहुत जरूरी है कि हम किस तरीके से उनको फेस कर रहे हैं। और ये आज का जो प्रोग्राम है इसी पे है, तो हम भी बहुत सारी चीजें सीख के जा रहे हैं। राजेंद्र जी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कि हमें इन्वाइट किया, आप लोगों से मिलने का मौका दिया। आज काफी लोगों की बातें सुनी, हमें बहुत अच्छा लगा। और भी क्वेश्चन कुछ हो आपके तो आप पूछ सकते हैं। और मैं जो मैंने 2008 में काम की शुरुआत की थी 10 महिलाओं से, आज 30,000 से ज्यादा बहनें हमारे साथ में जुड़ी हुई है। और राजस्थान की टोटल 44 लाख महिलाएं जो राजीविका के साथ में जुड़ी हुई, उनकी मैं ग्रैंड मिनिस्टर हूँ। तो मेरी पूरी कोशिश रहती है कि महिलाएं सक्षम बने, आत्मनिर्भर बने। किस तरीके से हर फील्ड में महिलाएं आगे आ रही है, ऐसे ही हम सबको ऐसा काम करना है कि हमारी गाँव की बहनें हैं जो कम पढ़ी लिखी है, जिनमें झिझक है, वो बाहर नहीं निकल पाती है, उनको ऐसा संबल दो कि वो खुद अपने पैरों पे खड़ी हो।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद रूमा जी। मेरी बहन जो मेरी मातृभूमि से आती है और मेरी मातृभाषा ही बोलती है, तो आपसे माफी चाहूँगा, मैंने राजस्थानी में धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा। दोहरा धरती हूँ पधारी उड़ा आप इन संस्था मान राख और हमारी मनवा जमानी। और आपने इसकी बात बताई, टावर पढ़े में 4 साल की उम्र में आप माते हो और माई लीचियाँ जाती थी, उन्होंने बावजूद आप एक एडी पहल करने सारी महिलाओं ने आगे ले आया, और वो आज राजस्थान रोगी, भारत रोगी, दुनिया रोमान है। और मैं आपकी मालिक तरफ हूँ और हमारी संस्था की तरफ हूँ, खड़ों खड़ों आपको धन्यवाद। तो क्वेश्चन आंसर हम लास्ट में लेंगे, अंत में लेंगे। मैं संतोष जी से अगेन रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि वो इस सभा को आगे बढ़ाएं।
थैंक थैंक यू वेरी मच, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने जो बात कही पूरी मैनेजमेंट की परिभाषा मैं उसमें देख रहा था। आप लीडरशिप की बात कर रहे हैं, ब्रेकिंग द बैरियर्स की बात की आपने कि हम कैसे तोड़ के आए, टुगेदरनेस की बात की, सबको साथ लेके चल रहे हैं, लीडरशिप की बात की, इनिशिएटिव्स हुई, इनोवेशंस हुए, कई आपने नई नई चीज़ें, नए नए प्रोडक्ट्स लाए, फिर मोबिलिटी हुई फ्रॉम बाड़मेर से हार्वर्ड, तो ये बड़ी जर्नी हुई और बड़ी यात्रा हुई और 30 साल के अनुभव के बाद सिर्फ बिलीव हुआ। तो इन सभी चीज़ों को देखते हुए कि एक इंडिविजुअल को अगर कोई काम करना है, इनइक्वालिटी के बैरियर्स को तोड़ना है, तो इस तरह से कंपैशनेट होकर दूसरे के लिए भी लगना है, केवल अपने के लिए नहीं। तो इसमें आईएलओ के हमारे फ्रेंड हैं आए हुए एक्सपर्ट, और उनसे मैं रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ कि नाउ वी हैव सीन ड्यूरिंग द कोविड दैट हाउ माइग्रेंट लेबरर्स got very severely affected and they were traveling all from Mumbai to on foot to Patna to other places. So I would request him to see that how global perspective inequality in the informal sector especially, and how it was actually in other countries also in building resilience, how to bring resilience in a very vulnerable community.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting the ILO to this very important workshop on inequalities in disasters management. And as you know, the ILO, the International Labour Organization, is an agency, UN agency that is promoting social justice and decent work. And yeah, so I will hopefully cover the migration issues at some stage. I will just go through some of the points I wanted to raise. So as we have heard this morning, you know, the multiple disasters result in losses, and they are different from different groups of people, but usually they impact the vulnerable the most. And they are causes that can create inequalities and social injustice, and they can create conflict as well. So the ILO, we firmly believe that placing people at the front and employment at the center of crisis response and crisis strategies is extremely important. And we need to promote socially inclusive, locally led, locally owned, gender responsive approaches to disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management, so that we enable full, equal, meaningful and inclusive participation and leadership of local communities and often underrepresented groups such as indigenous peoples, migrants, older persons, people with disabilities, women and youth. And it's also important in this context to work together to strengthen collaboration and coherence between disaster risk reduction, development, humanitarian and climate actors to better engage with the local communities. Yes, as during disasters and crisis and displacement, labor migration is often related to search for decent work opportunities. And the perception that migrants compete with the native workers, not the workers that are already in the location, reinforces xenophobia, leading to discrimination, employment issues, in some cases deportation and violence. And we saw over the 2021 COVID-19 pandemic that created unprecedented economic labor market crisis around the world, mostly as a consequence of lockdown and containment measures, and used them to contain the virus. So ILO estimated that globally, work hours declined by 8.8% in 2020, equivalent to 250 million full-time jobs, while we lost 114 million jobs that year. So it has a huge impact on the labor market. Climate change, as we have heard, has been identified as the single greatest threat to the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal agenda. And there is an increasing evidence of climate change becoming an additional driver of migration, both internal and international. And research suggests that global south will suffer the most from climate change, and that South Asia will be one of the hardest hit regions. Climate change is predicted to displace over 60 million South Asians by 2050. Worldwide, some 1.2 billion jobs depend on a healthy environment. We look at a loss of equivalent to 80 million jobs due to heat stress by 2030. 130 million people could move into poverty during the next decade, and we will not reach the SDGs. And up to worldwide, more than 200 million people could have to migrate internally by 2050. So it's a huge, issue. And all forms of the environmental degradation directly negatively affect the world globally. And we are witnessing job losses, unprecedented magnitude such as almost 1.6 billion informal workers, nearly half the global workforce at risk of further losing their livelihoods. So we are promoting something we call a just transition, because we need to move from a carbon economy to more green economy, renewable energies and so on and so forth. And when we talk about the just transition, it means that it's just for everybody, so that we are not leaving anyone behind. It means that people need to be reskilled, there needs to be opportunities for people to change from work that's been lost to the new type of jobs. ILO has prepared a guideline on just transition and environmental sustainable economies and societies that was issued in 2015, which offers policy options for addressing issues associated with greening of the economy, the workplace, and more broadly the transition towards sustainable development. ILO also has a recommendation 205, which is a landmark normative framework providing guidance for employment and decent work, promotion in situation of crisis. So this recommendation outlines guiding principles, strategic approaches, employment and income opportunities, rights, equality, non-discrimination, vocational training, guidance, social protection, and so on and so forth. So this is a recommendation that is guiding the ILOs and the UN systems of crisis response. The link between empowerment and decent work and disaster recovery is very important. In preventing and preparing for crisis, in promoting resilience and sustainable development, and tackling fragility, we need to put an emphasis on preventive measures, try to avoid the crisis to occur in the first place. So we also need to combine employment policies and social protection policies in order to ensure a human-centered recovery as well as a just transition. ILO supports an employment-centered immediate crisis response, but at the same time, we also advocate for long-term employment-centered development strategies, promoting decent work and social justice as key drivers for resilience and peace. And this is also an opportunity to promote international labor standards, fundamental principles of rights, and it's very important to use dialogue, a social dialogue platform between all the actors. And as we also heard earlier in the morning, investing in disaster resilient infrastructure is essential to address the triple threat of economy and environmental societal challenges. We need to increase the resilience, and it should be integrated in all urban and rural infrastructure development planning. So finally, I just want to say that the ILO also support what we call employment-intensive investments, which actually links development of resilient communities to infrastructure development with employment creation, and also contribute to poverty reduction, global and economic social development. So communities can be part of planning, they can be part of implementation of this work, and which can also provide them skills, jobs, and income. And finally, two initiatives that I want to highlight. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, in September 2021, the United Nations Secretary General launched the Global Accelerator on Jobs and Social Protection for Just Transition. This initiative is actually led by the ILO and has an ambition to bring together member states and countries, international finance institutions, social partners, civil society, and the private sector to help create 400 million decent jobs, including in the green, digital care economy, and extend social protection coverage to around 4 billion people currently excluded. And finally, the ILO Director General has proposed what we call a global coalition for social justice. It will bring together all the social partners, international organizations, and stakeholders, and the overall purpose of this coalition is to contribute to the reduction and prevention of inequalities, as well as to ensure that social justice is prioritized in national, regional, and global policy-making activities, including in development cooperation as well as in financial, trade, and investment agreements. Bringing together relevant actors and the ambition is to strengthen global solidarity, strengthen policy coherence, and have a concerted action. This is really in response to what we experienced during the pandemic, when we realized that our social protection and our social systems are not good enough. So these are new initiatives that we launched and that hopefully can help people, even if a crisis occurs, that they will have a better protection. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The kind of disasters which are occurring and global loss which is happening at $850 billion on an average per annum. And that resilience is a way of life now. So in this context, your ILO contributions and also the challenges to be taken up for the future, that how to build resilience so that the labor loss and other things can also be protected. The economic vehicle keep moving for the betterment of the society. It's very interesting today that we have another panelist which we call from that rural area is different, but how we go into the informal to the formal sector. And there we have a management institution in the country. And we have the director of the Indian Institute of Management, Bodh Gaya, Dr. Vinita Sahai, with us. We are entering also into partnership formally with Indian Institute of Management, Bodh Gaya. So we are signing our MOU with her and also with NIDM. So I would request Vinita Sahai and also both of Dixon and also have a photograph together so that, and I would request all of you to give a big hand for this partnership.
Just before Santosh takes this meeting to the next level, often the image of the Indian Institutes of Management is that they are institute for studying for rich and for working for the rich and the privileged. Our MOU with IIM Bodh Gaya is very broad-based, and my request to the director from the dais that our program for having some certification courses, if we can start the certification courses for the entrepreneurs like Ruma Devi, who are many of them do not get the opportunity because they do not have the required business skills. They have a courage, they have a skill, but what they need and lack is the financial management the manpower management, the interpersonal management. So can we have such and alter the image of these elite institutions of IIMs that they do not only cater to the richest of the rich, but they also cater for the people who are rich in their art, they are rich in their culture, but perhaps poor in their economic condition. Yes?
A big hand to this collaboration, and now I would request Dr. Vinita Sahai, the director of the Indian Institute of Management Bodhgaya, when we talk about women leadership. So we can see that how a woman can rise to the occasion and also to the position which she is handling this institution, and institution like IIM. Hardly you will find many of such institutions are headed by women. So give a big hand to Dr. Vinita Sahai for reaching out to this hand. And I would also request Madam to kindly say a few words in this occasion.
Thank you so much, Shri Ratnaji and Shri Santosh for inviting me over and giving me this space where not just Rumaji or Nephele, I also met such promising people. Since one year I've been just noticing, and what really makes me feel happy is that population-wise we make 50%, and even in this room we are close to that. So hats off to all the women who are sitting there. That makes me feel so special. And not just the women, they are also the young women of India, most of them as I see. So that even makes me even happier, because this is that population which is going to decide our future. Since Ratnaji mentioned it, so let me give a perspective. Yes, we are Indian Institute of Management, established in 2015, and 18 is when I joined as a founding director, and recently that I got my second term. We run 5 long-duration residential programs, which are typically for what he mentioned was, if not elitist, meritocratic India. See, all said and done, if India has produced 2 brands, which if you mention in any part of the world, right from Fiji Islands to Antarctica, that is IIT and IIM. Not just people take a note, even salute, and that comes from that meritocracy that we have been practicing. I feel happy to share that in our college, in a typical MBA program, I may have students from as high as 180 cities in 28 states. So we actually have students from Andaman and Nicobar. And being a central institution, we ensure that we follow all the mandates of the government. So we actually are the microcosm of India. And especially colleges like ours, or campuses like ours, are all about hungry tier 2 India. Believe me, the next engine of growth is hungry tier 2 India. I just love the enterprise in the spirit. See, Bombay is in tier 3. So you should see the passion with which the youth coming from this, because they know that. Like I come from Bihar right now, and I keep telling all the people who are at the helm of the affairs at education in Bihar that forget about it. Till how long they keep saying that we need special status or we are the Bimari. If there is one wealth which is most precious in today's scenario, it is human wealth. And Bihar has human wealth alone. What really is required? We are a population of 1.4 billion right now. Close to 60%, 70%, 60 billion would be women. 67% of the population lies in the age group of 19 to 35, the productive young India. And median age of 28. Look at the demography. Everything is going for us. But yes, there lies the critical factor. That if with this kind of a population, If this time around we don't scale them up, educate them, sorry, this time we will not have Britishers to blame, we will not have any foreign power to blame. The blame will square and flat lie on us and lie more on us, the teachers. And that explains, in spite of being such a young campus, we just have graduated our 7th batch, and with due respect to my senior campuses like I am the all, we have been there for 70 years. If they have 1,000 students, currently on my campus in 5 long duration programs, I have 1,150 students. Why? Because my professors have chosen this path, that if we can allow one more young person in, because we know that we change lives. Whosoever we touch, not just his life, his family's life, his mohalla's life, his entire orbit changes. And that too purely based on meritocracy. Now coming back to what Ratnaji just mentioned, again facts and figures. Last year, though those are the kind of training programs ideally an IIM would not do, we last year did 428, we trained 428 absolutely lowest straight of the society, something which is known as CMO Udyami Yojana, because what they do is they give anywhere between 2 lakhs to 10 lakhs to absolutely lowest rate of the society, and that too under, what they call it, Anusujit Jati and all that, reserve categories, what we typically understand. And typically I'm told that 6,000 such people that get trained. We could only do 428 with our limited capacity, but I have already started the impact assessment of that effort last year. The ones whom we train, they are miles ahead. And what you were saying, Ratnaji, this time around, I have dedicated actually one hall and an entire team. So as I'm speaking, I just finished my session yesterday with them, and I make sure that I go and teach there. And it's not about me, it's about the leadership of the institution taking personal interest and making that the biggest priority on the campus. So that's no favor. That's no favor. That is expected out of us. If we won't do, who else will do? It's such a pleasure to see, and mind you, 50% of them are women. It is such a pleasure to see those nursing women, nursing mothers, young girls. किसी को चक्की का आटे का चक्की खोलना है, किसी को छोटा सा ब्यूटी पार्लर खोलना है, किसी को छोटा सा दुकान खोलना है. Actually, micro entrepreneurs. And the diligence and the sincerity with which we try and teach the business plan. We try and tell them how to use social media, how to make WhatsApp groups and expand their businesses. Small things, sometimes just to open an email account. And we know that it is imperative because that is where we come from. As a school, we have chosen what I think business schools have finally recognized, and we were very, very lucky that we recognized it just post-Corona. In 18, we were wondering, what should we be doing? Because all other IIMs like IIM Bangalore is known for public policy, Ahmedabad is known for strategy. I was wondering with my team, what should we be known as? And the answer was just in the legacy. We come from land of enlightenment. This is the place where Buddha got enlightened. And colloquially, my students had already started using hashtag enlightening IIM. I said, don't you think it's too loud a statement? But yes, last year we allowed that. And why did we allow that? There's been a whole journey. We chose mindfulness and social impact as our core values. And these are not just for the lip service. We actually factually practice that. In every course that we teach, we have 30 hours credit courses on mindfulness and emotional intelligence. Because we recognize that in times to come, this is going to be the saving force. Believe me, as elders, we should never torture these youngsters or tell them that as to why they are on digital. They have no choice. You know, when we started our IPM program, believe me, we got what is known as Corona batch. These were the kids who had done their 10th and 12th in Corona times, and truly they were scarred. One fine day, their schools were taken away, their coachings were taken away, their tutors were taken away, their friends were taken away, and they were given a gadget which had pornography as well as education, and a suspecting parent at the back, who always was suspecting that whether he's studying or he's watching something else. Believe me, they were tortured like hell. And when they came to us, they were scarred. So we recognize that as a school, we also have to go and remember. But forget about all that. Today, I think the theme is that how resilience is and equality is a huge role in disaster management. I don't know, people may blame so, and the school has been in operation, but I never had a girl on campus. So when we were closing our admission sometime in May, we had given admissions to dozens and dozens, mind you, and you give admissions you want to give. But nobody ever came. So one day in the month of May, a family walked in all the way from Uttarakhand, a category student, coming, and his father was writing his application, and he asked me, how many girls are there? I said, bas abhi ki hai. And we were all made campus till then, and we have with all its percentual issues. He immediately got up, no, मैं अपना लड़की को कैसे छोड़ूंगा this that. It took me 4.5 hours. I called students who were from Uttarakhand to speak in their native language. Nothing was working. Finally, out of sheer desperation, I said, see, your number, your both parents' numbers will be on my hotline. I may not pick up any, but I'll pick up yours. It didn't work. Finally, we were a new campus and we only had 3 rooms, out of which only one had an attached toilet where I was sitting. I said, okay, I give my room. And that's how we made one hostel. I made one of my temporary worker, resident employee, and those 2 stayed in academic block for 24/7. चिल्लाने से, पोस्टर लगाने से, हाथ शोर मचाने से लड़की नहीं पड़ती. लड़की को आगे बढ़ाना होगा. So from there we became 3 girls, and next year we became 66. But all said and done, still 3.3 lakh people write catch to get into an IM. Only 20% are girls. So I know it's a little unfair on boys that 50% we give categories of all variety, and then we also give brownie points to girls for getting into the campus. So general boys definitely feel very, very alienated, but maybe for a couple of years, I think almost all campuses are making efforts that the girls come in. Girls come in and do what is known as management education. While they've been doing brilliant job in any case in the society, but as he was mentioning, maybe a formal education is needed. Maybe the placement in the right spaces is needed. Maybe that opportunity to use that emotional intelligence and resilience at work, at display is needed. We know that we are great leaders, but we need to really go out and do it. Management we all understand. In a very typical one-liner definition we say, optimum utilization of resources. Don't we know that this is something which comes very naturally to women? We have been great managers. I think Ruma has just demonstrated to the world that we can be so good. But I don't want to stop there. While we do on campus teach all varieties of operations management, finance, marketing, which helps them in making optimum utilization of resources. But I think what as a leader I coax them, I nudge them, I promote them is to become leader themselves. And there's only one difference between a manager and a leader, and I keep telling that this has got nothing to do with the designation that you carry. Leadership is a mindset. And the one difference which is there between manager and a leader is this whole difference of vision. We have to allow these girls to have vision. We have to promote these girls to have vision larger than self, larger than perhaps the families itself. This whole exposure, like when Ruma mentioned that she went to Germany and Harvard, that was an exposure. That was the widening of the horizon. Not necessarily that she did not have that quality to start with. The very fact that the second day of her journey she could rally around 10 people, and today she rallies around 30,000 people. But do you think 30,000 women are rallying behind her for nothing? No. Leadership is all about shared vision. Leadership is all about thinking about the larger goodness. And whenever such examples have come forward, that they have mobilized the masses, mobilized people more than themselves in that shared vision. What she empowered people was, or what she empowered those women was not just themselves. कहते हैं कि जब एक लड़का पढ़ता है, लड़का पढ़ता है, पर जब एक लड़की पढ़ती है तो पूरा परिवार पढ़ता है, पूरा खानदान पढ़ता है। तो आई थिंक रूमा जी ने जब लड़कियों को आगे बढ़ाया, वो पूरे परिवार को आगे बढ़ाया, तो उन्होंने उनको ड्रीम्स दिए होंगे, अपनी लड़कियों को एजुकेशन देना, अपने परिवार की मुश्किलों को दूर करना, अपनी आने वाली जनरेशंस की डेस्टिनी को चेंज करना. And that vision is the critical factor which drove her from what she was doing initially and what she is doing today. So whole idea, come on young girls, is the idea to have a perspective which is larger than ours. Yeah? Okay. So I think this journey, nobody is going to cover for us. This is our own journey. And then for sure, as I said, these qualities which are much needed, if you really go and look up the most brilliant qualities needed in a leader, again it comes back to qualities like mindfulness, being in the moment. Like she could have grieved over situations which were not there, but look at the action orientation and being in the moment. But okay, what is the next action needed? Do you know that now at Harvard or maybe in all Western schools and everywhere else, they are allowing people to do this needlework and anapanasati and meditation. Why? Just to be in the moment. Embroidery is perhaps one of the biggest exercises because even for a moment your mind goes away, the needle pricks you. It tells you, oh, you're not in the moment. As a school, as I said, we have chosen our value as mindfulness. And we know that as and when the society is becoming more turbulent, as and when these disasters are becoming an everyday story, this is going to be one of the most needed qualities. This whole emotional intelligence. Gone are the days when we could just survive and do well with IQ. IQ is passing. Today you need managers. Earlier we used to say VUCA word. We don't even use VUCA word now. We use one word. Brittle, anxious. So in all of it, these are some of the qualities needed, and I hope today that we have signed an MOU with them, we possibly would bring in this part also into the disaster management education as to how to handle these anxious emotions which are always a part of disaster, how to psychologically also, create the well-being of the people. So really look forward to the operationalization of this MOU, and thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vinita Sahaji, for bringing three very important things: resilience, compassion, leadership. And that is our problem, and we have to take that. So now we have to see this, that how the journey of a bureaucrat, a person, an individual, part of the society, the same society which we are living in, and the kind of struggle goes and to fight for their own rights. It's very interesting to listen to Ms. Ida Singhal-ji, her own journey and how she experienced when even after topped in the civil services exam, and what kind of challenges she could face, and what new things which she could establish and she could fight for. So I would request to
the world sees you exactly as you see yourself. So if you see your disability, the world will see your disability.
Topper and my interview went well, but I had a nasal voice and I had a cleft palate and I had a nasal voice. So because of that, the school rejected me. They didn't take me, and then my parents had to basically beg someone for a re-interview, and so that happened, and then I was taken in, and I ended up becoming one of the toppers of the school. Work 20-hour days, and I've always had this thing about needing to do something more impactful with my work, with my life. And I was very, appreciated in my company. I was doing extremely well, and I loved my job as well. But I was missing that emotional satisfaction of having made a difference. Or, end of the day, it was all about earning money, and that's not something that gets me going. That's not something that gets me wanting to do, put in effort. And I was realizing that I needed my days to have meant more. if I was working 20-hour days, then I needed to have made a little bit more with my day than this. And I thought that if I work 20-hour days for the country, then there is so much more that I can do. That there is so much that I can help change. There's so many people whose lives I can affect in a positive way. And that's how I decided to finally quit my job and get into civil. Cancelled my candidature based on the fact that they said that your disability is not amongst the ones allowed in the service that you get at your rank, and so we won't give you. One imagines that you're discriminated against in the private sector. Usually people think that government has to, there is a Article 16 in Constitution, equality for everyone, right? And so one imagines that you will face problems of discrimination in the private sector, but strangely for me, it was the other way around. I was very accepted in the private sector. I got my jobs very easily. But in the government, when I came, despite the fact that they agreed that yes, you can do the job, they didn't give me the job because somebody had forgotten to put my disability as one of the disabilities that was recognized. So it was very strange, and it was quite surprising actually, because you've cleared, everybody accepts that you have this disability, and everybody accepts you can do the job. But then suddenly it's like, oh, we forgot to add this one. We forgot to think that this kind of case can exist, and hence we won't give you the job. I was wondering what to do. So
Rest of things we must hear from.
Thank you so much, sir. And I think most of the story was covered here. And it seems a little opportune that I speak after the director of an MBA college, because that's where I ended up as well. And I was the typical Delhiite, which meant you did your engineering and then you figured out what else you wanted to do in life. And she's my college junior as well, which I just found out. So you see what she's doing. So engineering is that class 12 now, after which you decide, okay, now what do I want to become in life? So I did MBA. I absolutely enjoyed it. I think the amount of things you learn about yourself and the world around you, it's unparalleled in a business school. Got placed out of business school into Cadbury, one of the, I think, sweetest companies that can exist, because they only make sweet things. And it's a company which has, I think I didn't speak about it on the camera, but there is an actual room called the chocolate room, which is the size of the stage, a little bigger than the stage, and it is full of chocolates. And if you work in the company, you can go there anytime and have free chocolates, and there is no restriction. So you can eat as much as you want at any time. I mean, it doesn't get better than that, right? Like, that's the ideal job. And I was working in strategy sort of roles, and I had a brilliant time with the company. Everybody was really nice. I was one of the top performers, so I was on track for the highest increments and highest promotions. And I was getting awards at international level in the company. So, like that, it was good. But I've always been someone who wanted to kind of contribute to the world around me, and I don't see personal success in terms of how much money I'm making. To me, my happiness comes from have I made someone else happy. So I wanted to do, so there was a point when I was working 20-hour days, I was in office, it was a great, that project was great. But I started thinking that after 20 hours, is there a single person whose life I have impacted? I've made a lot of money for myself, for the company, for people associated with the company, but there is no single individual who will get up and say that I will make their life better, their children's lives better, their future brighter, the world better for them. And that's when I decided to quit and give civil services. And I must tell you, there is nobody in my family who's in government. Not even my extended family. I have no idea. I'm currently also the only poor person in my family. So there's absolutely no one who worked in government, and I had no idea about this exam or this whole system. But and my family was completely against me giving this, because according to them, the company was making me work, and since I'm an extremely lazy person, I probably want to quit and sit at home again. So my parents were convinced that you never studied for engineering or MBA, why would you study now? Suddenly why will you start studying? But this was something that I wanted to do for myself. So this wasn't about someone else, so this wasn't about, finding a career. This was actually finding a calling and finding a thing that I knew would give me actual satisfaction with what I was doing with my days. So I quit my job and I started preparing for civil services. And till that point in my life, I have been discriminated against as a person with disability, but it didn't really affect me in the larger scheme of things. I mean, schools reject you, but you will end up, I did end up getting admission somewhere good. It wasn't A school, it might be B school, but it was a good enough school. So it didn't really affect me on a personal day-to-day sort of level. I gave my first attempt in civil services, and I didn't get a rank which was good enough to get into the IAS or the IFS, which were the two services that I really thought I would be able to contribute in, and would give me the opportunity to do the kind of work that I wanted to do. Am I going super fast? It's fine? Okay. Because I speak really fast and then I forget. Okay. So then I gave my first attempt and I didn't get that rank. So I started preparing again, and when I was preparing for my second attempt, I started getting phone calls from people saying, do you know what happened to you? And at this point, I was not aware that something had happened to me. So, when a lot of people call you and say, oh my God, do you know what happened to you? And you don't think something, you don't even know that something had happened. You start wondering and you start finding out what happened. And that's when I figured out that I had been rejected basis my disability. So when you give any of the government exams, there are two lists that you kind of have to fit into. One is the list of what is your disability, and the second is a list of what are your abilities. So each service in the civil services exam list has selected certain services selected certain disabilities as the disabilities that they would like to have in their team in a way, and they've also selected certain abilities that are required for each of those jobs. Now in my case, I fulfilled the criteria for the abilities required for almost all the jobs in that list, but my disability in specific was being accepted by only one service, which is where I am right now, the IAS, and every other service in that list had rejected me, and that, by the way, at that point was true for every single job in this country, in the government. So any teaching job, any clerical job, even a sweeper job, I was not eligible for that. So I had worked as a senior manager in the corporate sector, but here in the government, I was being rejected based on my disability, and it's not even that someone is saying that you can't do this. The abilities I was fulfilling. So they are saying you can do this job, but we just don't like you, so we're not going to take you. That's what it boils down to, because there is no doctor which has sat and said that there is a correlation between that these are the people who can do your jobs and hence you should take them. So this is a list which was prepared by people sitting in a room one day and just stick marking whatever they found nice as per their own perceptions. And this is something that I wanted to point out specifically, that for people with disabilities, The perception bias is where all the problem arises. It's other people's opinion of what you are capable of and what you're not capable of that somewhere ends up defining your life, because it defines the opportunities that come to you. And so coming back to that story, all those people who had called me actually were other candidates to whom the same thing had happened. So I wasn't the only one who was rejected on that ground. Those other candidates, those people who had been calling me, were also of the same, in the same boat to say, and they were also being rejected basis their disability. And you have to realize in India, disability is largely a function of poverty. Because the majority of people who are disabled are so because either their mother didn't get proper nutrition during pregnancy, or there was a problem at the time of birth where there was no proper medical care available, or post-birth the child did not get proper care and nutrition and safety. For example, polio was one of the biggest disabilities that you would see around you. So very few people with disabilities are actually genetically disabled. Most of them are disabled, have had environmental and other factors which led to them being disabled. So now here, this was the government whose mandate it is to kind of make, be equal to everybody and give everybody that platform. And here, that perception bias had again played a role. And I realized that all of those other people who had been facing this problem, they couldn't, they didn't have the wherewithal to fight a lawsuit. And I had joined the system to make a difference. And I thought maybe this is where I'm supposed to start. Maybe this is what I'm meant to, change. So I filed the lawsuit, and to add to the strangeness of the story, in my second attempt, again the same thing happened to me. So again I qualified as per my rank for a service called the IRS, Indian Revenue Service, and I again was rejected on the grounds of my disability. Oh, there is another problem here. In government, if you're a person with disability, you are not allowed on a general category seat. So you cannot get a general seat which is available to every other reserved category if you're a person with disability, because you don't fulfill the medical criteria that are required for all of the jobs. So for a general candidate, there are medical criteria, and as a person with disability, because you don't fulfill that list, you do not get the general category seat. So now, for me, in all of those seats, there was literally one seat available, which was in the IAS. And since I cannot get a general seat, if there is even one candidate in that list who's above me, I don't get a job. And I can sit for this exam 70,000 times and I will not get it, because there can always be that one person just above me. So even if I have a rank 5 and there is a person at rank 4 who is a PWD candidate, they will get that seat and I will not. So that was the situation with my specific disability. And so I gave this exam the second time, same thing happened. I didn't give this exam after that because I thought, if this is the scenario, then let me first try to fix it. But if you've been someone who's been working all your life, you kind of get bored with doing nothing also. Having too much free time and having too much entertainment is also boring. So I couldn't not do anything anymore, so I went and gave a third attempt. And again, the same thing happens. And let me tell you this, getting the same result in Civil Services Exam of India, it's a miracle. Because that almost never happens. Something will change. But for me, exactly same thing was happening every time. I was always qualifying for the same service, similar rank, and the same thing was happening. I was constantly getting rejected. So I didn't, but by the time my third attempt result came out, the court judgment also came out. And we are sitting in a government institute and we're all government officers here, but I will still say this, I hope none of you ever have to deal with us. Because if you have to get something done from us, you will have to keep reminding us and constantly knock on our doors, because you will fall through the cracks. And that's very true for all of us. So when my judgment came, I thought, oh my God, I am done with all this. Now I can finally go join somewhere and do something. By then I had adjusted to the idea that I'm supposed to be an IRS officer. Because, what else do you think when life has done this to you twice? And people don't even, people's ranks will change, people may get in, may not get in. You are getting in every time with the same rank and same service. So I do this, and so I wait for a few months, and I'm wondering what happened. Why am I not getting the joining? Why is the department not calling me? So I call up the department, and they say, "Oh, your judgment came. Okay, send us a copy." And by the way, I have also been guilty of doing that to other people. So it's a routine for us. We do that. We just things happen. So they said, okay, send us all the paperwork. I sent all the paperwork, and again I'm waiting. And now I'm worried that maybe they're going to file an appeal. And if this goes in appeal, I can be in court for next 20 years, just waiting for this job that I was supposed to get all that many years ago. So this friend of mine said that you have nothing better to do in life, please prepare a fourth time. You know, you might as well give the exam, you already know everything. And I know that quite a few of you are aspirants, and this is not to discourage you, but this is to really give you a reality check. Civil services exam is pretty much the worst torture you can inflict on yourself. It is a financial, emotional, mental, physical, and social torture. Because what you will do is you will lock yourself in a single room in your 20s, which is the time that you make your career the most. You know, that's the time you can push your career to whatever it is going to end up. You will lock yourself in one room and keep doing the same thing again and again, and failing at it and not knowing why you are failing. Right? And it is pretty much the worst way to punish yourself. And it's not something that you have to do. There is no compulsion. Right? It's a choice that you are making. So you are choosing to punish yourself. Right? And hence, I always warn people, please do this only if you really want to. It is not possible to do this much, you know, I mean, to hate yourself in a way so much that you do this for someone else. So do this for you. And at that point, I was really done with it. I mean, 3 years of doing, and in a way 4 years, because I also dropped that year. So I really did not want to give this again, because it is taxing to the extent you can't imagine. You know, aspirants say this, and a lot of people who not clear the exam say this, that this is the worst drug addiction on earth, because for everything else you can get out, in this you do not get out. You constantly hope 1 mark this time, half mark this time, is this time, you know, I skipped this portion, so next time I'll do this, and it's just unending. So I didn't want to give this exam again, and I literally had nothing else to do. So I gave this exam, and as luck would have it, I got a letter from the Category Controlling Authority saying, come join the day after the mains exams end. And now at this point I've run out of excuses to not study. I mean, if they had called me before the exam, I could say, oh my god, I have to go join, I'm not studying. But that didn't happen. I was told to come join after the exam. And so I gave the exam, I threw away all the books, I literally sold off everything, deleted every single thing from my computer because I was done. And I was like, thank God, never again. Now I have a legitimate excuse to not do this. And I went and joined the IRS training, and every time in my life, being the shortest person, I was made to sit forcibly by the teachers in the front seat. This time I was volunteering to sit on the front seat, so I would, you know, in IRS training I used to sit on the front seat, I would make all the notes, and I was extremely sincere. But by the time the result came out, I got into the IRS, which is where I am right now. And this was the only service which was willing to accept me, so no lawsuit needed this time. And I in fact had my first posting in this area as the SDM here. I am out of this region. I was SDM Alipur, so it's nice memories for me. And then so saying it's very far, I did this every day for a year and a half, so not far for me. And I must say that if you truly want to do this, it's the most rewarding career, most rewarding, I think, life you will ever get to lead, because every single day, just by turning up to office, you help so many people, you change so many lives. You know, I mean, if you're an SDM and you turn up to office and you just sign those 300 certificates that you were supposed to do that day, you have changed 300 lives. So just by showing up, you can change lives, and the number of opportunities you get to work in different sectors, which includes disaster management and from women's section to education to urban development to rural to even law and order, all of that you get to do, and it is extremely rewarding. You can really make a difference. Just to bring it to context of disaster, in fact, the first one of the first things that I had to do as an SDM was that there was flooding in Yamuna, and we prepared in advance. We prepared well, and we had no casualties, including no casualties of animals. While the district just after mine, which was the subdivision right after mine, they had, I think, 4 deaths of people drowning. So that's where the kind of work you get to do, and if you're good at if you're just sincere at your work, the kind of differences you can make. Because see, that's 4 families that got affected for almost nothing, while we in our district could manage things well. And disasters. So coming back to the topic of disability, and I hope I have exceeded time, so I'm going to be very quick with this. Disability is something which, unfortunately, the number of people you have pre-disaster who are disabled actually goes multifold post-disaster. So it's extremely important that you factor in people with disabilities in disaster, but unfortunately in India, we are ashamed of being disabled. And I think that's true for actually the rest of the world as well. Disability is something to be ashamed of, something to be treated as, disability in India equates to having no abilities. And that's the perception due to which the number of people who get affected by smallest disasters is so much more. So during COVID, we actually said, I was in the municipal corporation back then, and we set up a special helpline for people with disabilities because we knew that our regular helplines would probably not be able to cater to them. Things that other people could do, they could not. So we had home delivery of rations for them. We even had mental health counseling for all of these people because they already felt weak, and on top of that, COVID had made them feel weaker. And people already suffer from health issues, so they needed more medical care. So disaster is actually one aspect which really needs to cater to people with disabilities as compared to everybody else, because the impact a smallest thing has is multiplied for people with disabilities in those scenarios. See, they cannot communicate with you well, or they have mobility issues, both of which restrict their ability to save themselves. And hence, it's important that the plans or the teams that are doing that job are more careful and more aware of them. But I'll stop here, and I hope all of this makes sense. And thank you so much, sir, for giving me.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. When we look at the data of this gender equity and male-female ratio, we can visualize very well कि कितने हीरा जी को हमने खो दिए और कितने उमा जी को खो दिया और कितने विनीता जी को खो दिया. अगर फीमेल फेमिसाइड नहीं होता तो हमारा देश का एक अलग स्वरूप होता. कितने टैलेंट्स खत्म हो गए इसमें. So this is wonderful thing which you mentioned about how people are very judgmental and they make opinions. So here we need to look at and revisit our thoughts and perception also, how to look at things differently. So wonderful, thank you very much to you, and I would request now Professor Cocos. He has to play a video. He wanted to, instead of speaking, he wanted to share the video of his institution. So,
since first of all, on behalf of all our students, many of them are there and our faculties are there. Thank you for inviting us to this important event. Most of you must be knowing that we are from Delhi. Our institute is one of the premier institutes, not accredited, A-grade, which is providing and producing health managers, hospital managers to work all over India as well as internationally. We are proud to be here and tell that about 6,000 health management people are there who are working at various places from IHMR Delhi, IHMR Jaipur, and IHMR Bangalore. Which I did not emphasize here the need for management, but here we are here to talk about resilience, disaster resilience, and as you know that disaster resilience used to be inculcated among the children and young people to the collaborative efforts which are from the civil society, academia, government, and non-government organizations. With this motive, our students and our researchers at IHMR Delhi planned attend a long sensitization event of disaster risk reduction and attempted to forward the agenda to our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji on youths, how they can deal with disaster risk. This is just a 4-5 minutes. Let us go to videos.
Women, children, persons with disability, transgenders, socioeconomically marginalized,
refugees, displaced and migrant groups. These are not just cluster of individuals, but they are the hem of affairs when we talk about vulnerability and resilience. Vulnerable population is often disproportionately affected by disasters and have different and uneven levels of resilience and capacity to recover. The failure to include and empower vulnerable groups' disabilities in the world's efforts to reduce the risks of disasters has dramatic consequences. With this idea and background, the students and research officers from IIHMR Delhi planned the 10 days long sensitization activities for disaster risk reduction across 8 Indian states like Delhi, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh. We proudly believe that ID disaster risk reduction is made everyone's responsibility. We can improve the national footprint of any campaign. The events were curated based on the target population like medical staff working in public health infrastructure like health and wellness centers, PHCs and district hospitals, school students, graduate students in various colleges, children with disabilities studying in various special schools, underprivileged children residing in slums, refugee campus, open market, streets, parks, etc. Dedicated team of students under the guidance of faculty members delivered a range of activities in these organizations which included training and sensitization on various types of disasters followed by hands-on training, quiz, mock drill for fire and earthquake, playway activities, skit nukkad natak, talk show, poster making, map reading and evacuation route exercise, injury management, first aid, basic life support training, awareness talk, facility review and panel discussions. Some of the heartfelt messages from the youth champions who delivered the event at respective locations. There's ability in disability. All we need to do is find that one ability to make the individual understand his participation and need in the community. Planning and delivering the DRR activity was a rewarding experience, knowing we were making a positive impact on our community. I realized that transgender community are having a very high risk index due to an individual level disasters which they face daily. There's a long way to go for this community. I felt a range of emotions, including empathy, compassion, and sometimes even hope. The experience is both eye-opening and emotionally impactful, igniting social awareness and inspiring positive change. The experience was overwhelming as we could see our audience, the little children, not only helping us in conducting the program but enjoying it to the fullest. It was an amazing and wonderful experience to deliver DRR activities for school children and interact with creative minds and enthusiastic children. Planning and organizing the DRR event as logistics manager helped me understand forecasting, planning, organizing, and crisis management part for an event of this scale. Thank you for being
Kumar for representing this IIHMR, Indian Institute of Health Management and Research. And now House is open for question and answer for 10 minutes. Anyone first raise your hands and we will identify. Yes, you have to first say who are you and then ask your question. Address to which panel?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry that for you to sit time. My name is T.D. Dharia. I'm former Deputy Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities and the State Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, Delhi. And right now I'm representing 4 organizations: CBM India Trust, National Association for the Blind as its president, CAVE Foundation, which works for accessibility, and Special Olympic Pilot, which works for intellectually disabled children and for their sports. My question to all the panelists is, and my request in fact is, when we talk about Asamanta Sashaktikara, in the list of all the intersectionalities, I find disability at the bottom, and last priority, Madam Ira is witness to and she mentioned about this. Section 8 of Rights for Persons with Disabilities Act says that every district must have, it's a mandatory requirement, that we should have the list of people with disabilities in the district to make use of that list pre, during and post disaster. क्योंकि उनकी ये जो है number of issues, something said that people, say blind people, how to rescue them? Yeah. Question है कि क्या हम partnership in training, say for example CBM India Trust को करती है, training करती है, capacity building on this particular DIDRR. तो DIDRR में can we do this, implement this on ground and conduct those training, capacity building, so that people with disabilities, not even disabilities, get the similar treatment, equal treatment as any other person. We will be willing to do that.
Very special invitation to you, and your seat on the very first row gives the answer to your question that you are a very, very important partner for us, and we are looking forward to this partnership.
Thank you. Thank you. I get one question from the director of the Deaf and Dumb Institute.
Yes, so she'll be speaking for me. Thank you so much for inviting me for such a conference. This is my first time related to, I'm the president of National Association of Deaf, and I have seen a lot of problems which happen to deaf people in disaster. In my WhatsApp, get their disability, other disability can at least communicate in the with the people because they share the same language. But I think for deaf people, like for an example, you are able to understand everything. Again, shared language. With the sign language interpreter like you had today, I was included. But that's something that doesn't happen in most of the situation in disasters at all. So for deaf community, the awareness, if you want to spread, sign language should be included.
Sir, I will take your question. I completely agree with you, and that's one of the things that I think government is now pushing, that sign language is being taught to regular students as well, is being made as a third language in schools. In my area, when I was Director of Education in Delhi, in North MCD, I included sign language as a compulsory third language in all my schools, and even where I am right now, since I'm in education department, we have done workshops on sign language for all my teachers and all my students, at least the basics. And it's important, I completely agree with you, that in times of disaster, it's even more important that people are able to communicate with each other. Because sign language in India has become this language that only the deaf people use to communicate with each other. And that's really sad, because the main purpose of a language is to allow you to communicate with the larger world. And hence, it needs to now become a language of everybody else also. So there are definite efforts, and I remember our Honorable Prime Minister has also mentioned this at some stage, saying that this needs to be done as a third language. So it's being done at smaller levels. It will take some time, but it is being done. It is already begun.
Thank you. Yes. Introduce yourself.
My name is Dilip Kumar. I am from STMA, Bihar, working as Senior Advisor, HRD Training and Capacity Building. At the outset, I would like to thank EDNITM for inviting us to attend this valuable meeting. In fact, I have got a lot of insights, and after listening to 3 empowered women sitting on the dais, I am also feeling empowered now. That, nothing can stop us, and we should break away the limitations also. My question is to ILO Director. I have been working with the UNDP also. So it is related with resilient livelihood for internally displaced people, who, because you said in your lecture that a large chunk of IDPs will be created due to climate change. So what kind of strategy you are having? My question is just simple and straight, sir.
Thank you. Would you like to respond? Yeah, I think as it was evidence from the COVID-19 pandemic, we were not prepared with this type of social protection safety nets, and we will see a lot of displacement as a cause of climate change. And I think that is why there are now large-scale initiatives to look at. We have this global accelerator on just transition to jobs and social protection, which will try to improve protection schemes. We also have this new coalition to global social justice, which is also going to look at bringing everyone, all the stakeholders, not only the ILO and its partners, but all the UN, all the multilateral partners, governments, think tanks, and donors as well, to really take a real stab at social justice, as I said. And at the bottom, we need to have better and more larger social protection schemes.
Any other question? Okay.
Despite 220 or 225, still people are so patient, and that shows the power of जो हमारी शक्तिशाली महिलाएं जो आज पैनल पे हैं उनकी शक्ति को.
Hello everyone. First of all, thanks for such a lovely platform to express and learn from you experts and seeing so much empowered people over there. So my question goes to Ida Singhal ma'am. As we talk about disability inclusion DRR, we have a concept of that. But the problem which we are facing currently is in the infrastructure. If we go to the governmental buildings and other places, then we have ramps. But those ramps are not favorable to the persons on wheelchair. The angle is too much, the proportion is wrong. We have ramps, but they are not favorable. So kindly consider this.
You are absolutely right, and this comes from the lack of sensitization in the society about people with disabilities. But I will make a very important point here. Every new building that is being made, they have perfect ramps. Every new building. It's only the old buildings, when we retrofit them, that these problems arise. And it's the chicken and the egg problem, right? Because there are not enough people with disabilities working in those buildings, they are not making them properly. And because those buildings are not made for people with disabilities, there are no people with disabilities in those buildings. So it's that chicken and egg problem, but with the Accessible India campaign, a lot of work has been done, a lot of, and there has been checks also by third parties to check if that, when the government says that we have made this building accessible, whether that has fully been done. I agree with you that with the ramps, that problem does happen. It's very tough even to walk on them, leave aside a wheelchair. But India is a country with little space, so there's a hurry to make a ramp and they make it. But a lot of times what they're doing is they are changing them and they are creating different routes. So it is happening, but it's a slow going. But of course, in new buildings, everything is being made to make sure it is as accessible as per the act. Another thing that, and this is something very few people know, that in all the architecture courses across the country, accessibility is an actual subject that is taught. It is because we as a society, when we are making, when we are asking for someone to make a building, we don't ask them to make it accessible. How many of us actually think about making our homes accessible? Even though at some point in our lives, we are all going to get old and we need that support, or someone will break a leg and they will need to be on a wheelchair. But we don't do that. So as a society, because we don't demand accessibility, we don't get accessibility. It's not that people don't know how to create, we need to start demanding.
First and foremost, I would like to congratulate NILM on successfully conducting the workshop. I am Dr. Kumar from Helpage India, an organization that is working for poor and frail elderly for past 4 decades. So my question to the panel is very straightforward in terms of disaster risk reduction. We have been talking about disaster risk reduction, which is DRR. So how we can make DRR more elderly inclusive? Because disaster is something, elderly are the most vulnerable and extremely vulnerable when I am saying this. COVID, of course, has brought out the elderly into a limelight, not for the good reasons, but for the other reasons that the elderly require healthcare needs, evacuation needs. There are needs for information and communication, because these needs have to be met in terms of post and pre and the post preparedness. So how do we make an elder, inclusive disaster risk management?
Thank you for that question, and it's a very important and a very wide spectrum of sub-questions are there. But if I may attempt to answer that, the whole answer to social inequity or this thing lies in basically it is inclusive DRR is based on fundamentals of inclusive development. And inclusive development, when I say, it's not the GDP alone, it is not about the infrastructure or the economic sector alone. It is the human development which is equally important. And as you know, HDR or human development consists of 3 components. One is education, the longevity or the healthcare, and third is the livelihood or economic empowerment. And once we have all these 3 factors which are available, which are affordable, and which are accessible to people, and we had a very eminent panelist, Emergencies, who have done an enormous contribution, and today India, even Honorable Prime Minister has given the entire, total new direction to inclusivity by giving a very high thrust on, there is a very popular this thing that Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vyas or Sabka Vishwas. So I think that is translating. When the top leader tells something, it is not that we try to focus and see that how things become better. So I think it is becoming more and more on the mainstream of our discourse, on the debate, on our academia. So what is needed is basically this missing link between on one side academia, on the other side those who are in the field action, and the third is the policy maker and those who are implementing. So NILM as an important player into this thing, we are trying to bridge. हम इसमें एक सेतु बनना की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि कैसे नीति निर्धारकों के बीच में, कैसे हम अकादमिक जगत के बीच में, और कैसे हम इम्प्लीमेंटर्स और एक्शन ओरिएंटेड और जो स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं, दैट इज द पीपल, दोज हु आर एट द मार्जिन ऑफ द सोसाइटी, हाउ वी कैन make more bridges between them, and I think it's a journey. And this question will always remain there, but we have to continuously strive toward that. Thank you. If I could answer.
just recently the Parliament has cleared one bill, that is women's bill. It's a very proud moment. So, but I'm not finding any women to actually, yes. आप बोलिए. Please.
First of all, a very good afternoon to everyone, to all the honorable panelists on the dais and all the delegates of the dais. My name is Aditi Sinha and I am a student of IIHMR Delhi. So it was a I feel very honored to attend this program. Like being a student, I got this opportunity to sit among such delegates. It's very, very important. So first of all, Ira ma'am, like I truly admire you so much. Like I come from Jharkhand and my hometown is Bihar. So seeing so many aspirants around me, I connected with you so much. Like the thing which it's like a drug, it's true. I've seen my friends. And with my question today is to Ruma ma'am. मैम आपने जैसे बताया कि आपने जब अपनी जर्नी की शुरुआत की तब आपने अपने बच्चे को खोया एंड आपने अपना ध्यान भटकाने के लिए 10 महिलाओं को इकट्ठा किया एंड आपने अपनी जर्नी की शुरुआत करी. तो मैम जब आप एक लीडर बन जाते हो एंड आप एक ऑलरेडी एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे पहुंच जाते हो तब तो लोगों को कन्विंस करना आसान हो जाता है क्योंकि तब आपके पास वो पावर होता है कन्विंस करने का. बट जब जहाँ से आपने शुरुआत करी थी तब आपके पास ऐसे कुछ नहीं था. आपके पास सिर्फ आपकी बातें थी जिनसे आप उन महिलाओं को कन्विंस कर सकते थे. तो मुझे आपसे यही जानना था कि आपने उन 10 महिलाओं से ऐसा क्या कहा कि वो आपके साथ, क्योंकि कई बार ऐसा होता है कि परिवार मान जाते हैं, उनके घर वाले मान जाते हैं, समाज भी मान जाता है, लेकिन जिन्हें खुद आपके साथ चलना है वो कई बार नहीं मान पाते हैं. तो मुझे यही जानना था कि आपने उन 10 महिलाओं से क्या कहा कि उन्होंने अपने घर से वो बाहर निकली एंड उन्होंने आपकी जर्नी में आपका साथ दिया.
देखिए, घर की महिलाओं को अगर अपन बोले कि आप चलो हमारे साथ हम काम करते हैं तो वो कभी नहीं करते. उनसे पहले ये क्वेश्चन किया कि आपको क्या क्या परेशानी हुई, क्या इस परेशानी का कोई समाधान हो सकता है. अगर अपन ऐसा करें तो हो सकता है. तो वो धीरे धीरे ऐसे करके साथ में आई. ऐसा नहीं कि चलो आज अपन कुछ काम कर लेते हैं, तो वो कभी नहीं आती मेरे हिसाब से. जब उनको पता चला कि वास्तव में हमें काम करने की जरूरत है तो किस तरीके से किया जा सकता है, घर का काम संभाल के साथ में जो भी टाइम मिलता है उसमें अपन टाइम पे काम कर रहे हैं. ऐसा नहीं है कि एकदम से घर का काम छोड़ दिया, बच्चों को छोड़ दिया, बाकी जो बुजुर्ग लोग हैं उनका कहना न मान के फिर अपन आगे बढ़े. ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं किया. सारा काम करते हुए साथ में अपन को आगे कैसे बढ़ना है वहां से शुरुआत है.
सबका साथ सबका विकास.
धन्यवाद मैम.
Namaste everyone. My name is Mansi Chauhan. I am also from IIHMR Delhi Institute. So my question is, how would the government be strengthening the PHCs for disaster resilience, as there are many vicinities which only have reliability on PHCs when it comes to healthcare?
Well, I think there is nobody from the proper healthcare system, but we run modules with health department, and there are national health mission, and there were earlier projects also which were funded by World Bank where a lot of infrastructure was given to PHC. Large number of PHCs have been upgraded to the next level, and where 24 hours doctors are there. They have strengthened PHCs today. And I think India, we must be very proud that in 1947, at the time of independence, there was a landmark, committee, one retired colonel of army, who was Colonel Bhore, who gave this entire blueprint for the India's healthcare system. And there was another, colonel who was called Colonel Soke, who was again a part of the subcommittee, which was of a committee headed by Subhash Chandra Bose to think about India's future after post-independence. So we were out of very few countries which had visualized up to last mile health delivery system, including health sub-centers, PHCs. But unfortunately, what has happened in this country is that there are buildings waiting for the doctors, but the profile of the doctor is so elitist, and the whole education system unfortunately had derailed, and I think that there are a lot of reforms happening in the medical education today, and I think more and more doctors will be mandated to go into the rural areas. So it is not a question of strengthening the building. It was also a question of skewed distribution of the doctors and the medical manpower in the rural areas and urban areas. And I think that gap is being bridged now with more and more people coming from rural areas, number of medical colleges increasing in the states. And I think today resources is not a problem in a country like India to provide the infrastructure and other support to not only PSC but even below PSC, where states like Tamil Nadu etc. have given certain diagnostics to like BP and sugar level machines etc. to even health subset of village health nurses.
Last two questions.
No, sir. It was an enlightening session. Thank you.
There is one more. बताइए भूख प्यास किसी को नहीं है क्या चालू कर दिया हमारे इन लोगों ने, हीरा जी ने और रुमा जी ने और
थैंक यू सर। मेरा नाम दीप नारायण पांडे है, मैं नेशनल रिसर्च जेटी में असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर हूँ। और आज के इस प्रोग्राम में ये पता चला कि बाड़मेर के निवासी बहुत ही अच्छे और मीठे वक्ता होते हैं। आप दोनों को देखने लगा ऐसा। मेरा रुमा देवी से सवाल है। रुमा देवी जी, आपने परंपरा और संस्कृति में समन्वय करके महिलाओं को जागृत किया। आपका भविष्य का क्या प्लान है? अभी आप 30,000 यूनिट्स तक पहुंची हैं, आगे आपकी संस्था कहाँ तक पहुंचने का इरादा है, ये बताइए।
अभी तो 30,000 महिलाएं जुड़ी है, लेकिन अकेले बाड़मेर में वेटिंग में 2 लाख महिलाएं हैं, तो काम तो बहुत करना है, लेकिन हाथ बंधे हुए हैं। जितना कर पा रहे हैं उतना कोशिश कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि मेरा विजन ये है कि मैं ज़्यादा नहीं पढ़ लिख पाई। 8वीं में मेरी स्कूल छूट गई, आज भी बच्चों की स्कूल छूट जाती है, वो आगे नहीं पढ़ पाते हैं, तो उनके लिए हम एजुकेशन के लिए भी व्यवस्था करते हैं, स्कॉलरशिप देते हैं जिससे वो आगे पढ़ पाए। तो हमारा विजन है कि महिलाएं आगे बढ़े, वो पढ़ लिख के सक्सेस बने और अपना घर परिवार में सपोर्ट कर सके, एक ही विजन है और वो मुझे रेगुलर करना है। और हमारे संस्थान के थ्रू पूरी इंडिया में अभी जो रुमा देवी फाउंडेशन बना है वो नेशनल लेवल का है, तो हम पूरी इंडिया में अभी काम करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि जो ट्राइबल वुमेन्स है वो घर से बाहर नहीं निकलती है, उनके लिए हम किस तरीके से काम कर सकते हैं। तो ऐसे कई छोटे छोटे गाँव हैं, अकेले बाड़मेर की ये कहानी नहीं है। मैं कर्नाटका गई तो वहाँ पे भी ऐसे गाँव हैं, दिल्ली में भी है, महाराष्ट्र में भी है। तो हमारे वहाँ से कई ऐसे आर्टिजन हैं जो मास्टर आर्टिजन्स है, उनको हम अलग अलग जगह पे ट्रेनिंग देने के लिए भेजते हैं। तो पहले हमारे आर्टिजन बहनें वहाँ उत्तराखंड माणा गांव में भी गई है, अभी जलगांव में ट्रेनिंग चल रही है। तो इस तरीके से हर गांव से महिलाएं सक्षम हो। अपना बाड़मेर अकेला ऐसा नहीं है कि वहीं पे हमें काम करना है। मैं चाहती हूँ कि जहाँ जरूरत है वहाँ काम करना है।
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Yuri sir, and entire team for inviting me for this session. My name is Sigamani, Professor, Center for the Study of Law and Governance, JNU. It's the first time I'm coming here, so thank you so much. I don't have any questions, rather I would like to make 2 comments. So this session, today's program, it's full of positive energy. I'm going with so much of motivation here. It's something like what I learned from here. Convert all your difficulties into opportunities. So like ma'am, all your presentations, it's really infectious. That will be good for the youngsters, to learn the difficulties, how to manage difficulties. The second observation here, multi-stakeholders participation in disaster risk reduction is one of the major areas that all of us are working on it. So in this framework, government, funding agencies, implementing agencies, everybody is doing their best to bring change in this society. But there's one category that is you and me, individuals in the framework of multi-stakeholders participation. Topic like this, there's a time you must take conscious effort to change the system, like culturally induced gender-based discrimination is prevailing in our system. So who can make the change? That you and me can make the big change in our system. Thank you so much.
अच्छा ओके सो वी विल जस्ट नाउ मुझे लगा कि सरबजीत जी को भी सवाल है, क्योंकि आज तो जीत ही जीत है, एक तरफ अमरजीत थे, एक तरफ सरबजीत हैं, तो अब मैं अभी
Sir, I have to speak something to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Just I want to share my experience that I'm working with DDNA, Sharnath Mark, as a senior consultant, and one day I have seen a lady who has been escorted by the 4 commandos, and I really stopped. And I have seen the lady and I became very impressed. And then I inquired. Then I came to know the lady is none other than the Ira man. And then I came to know that she's very dynamic and very effective officer in that area.
You don't have to prove that, everybody now knows that.
Yeah, but just I wanted to share my impressions about her. Thank you so much.
And now I request Professor Anil Gupta to show us the way forward, and if he has any summing up points before we go to vote of thanks.
मेरी तरफ नाराजगी से मत देखिएगा. And between you and lunch, so I just take
I'll just take few minutes. So thank you, and the detailed report of the today's discussion, which was on very important theme, that is this year's theme for the International DRR Day. The entire discourse in the 2 sessions has been very rich. So the detailed report will be developed by the team and will be available very soon on the NITO website also. But the major areas which were discussed today, I will just point out on the areas which were discussed. But besides that, when we discuss that turning difficulties or challenges into opportunities, are also talking about the key aspects of the inequality like disability and gender. I think one aspect in the way forward we need to work upon those more meticulously, and that is basically they're looking at the root cause. So while the symptomatic treatment and the long-term strategy is important, even if we talk about the gender injustice or gender inequality, more particularly about women, we need to also look at the historical evolution, I would say, not in the positive term, that how this patriarchy system started. It was not from the beginning. So it is not a natural thing. The male dominance is not the part of the nature. Nature never given a male dominant system in the society, but how it started. If you go back and look at the history, you will find that it started with the agrarian society, evolution of the agrarian society, and more like the herding culture and growing the crops and other things. From where? So basically, we will have to look at the root causes, and now the society is changing in many terms, not only from agrarian to industrial, and now a cosmopolitan economy, and also now totally IT driven, so where everything is moving and undergoing a disruptive technology. So how do we look at it? And that is also a natural way why things are changing. So that is also even the story of the Madam Era and the Navy G. So there also the role of technology probably has also played. And we also have to see that in addressing these kind of changes, how do we use various innovations, promote various applications of technology. Second, disability. On one hand, we are trying to evolve our judicial systems, governance systems, to bring in the emphasis on the disability inclusive approaches. But on the other hand, while disability is increasing in the society, probably we should not forget that aspect also. India is a country which is contributing to the
at large to the highest number of the road accident related listing. And almost 24% of the road accident lead to disability. Maybe limb-related disability, maybe other kind of disability. So how disabilities are being contributed, that is also important that we should think about when we develop a long-term strategy while addressing the current existing challenges. So 5 points on which the entire discourse was there under today's 2 sessions. One is gender inclusivity and empowerment. And so basically that the specific vulnerabilities of women in the face of disasters and the aftermath of disaster, that has also been discussed. And the recommendations that how we have the more localized efforts and the better gender inclusive plans for disaster management, and not only dealing with emergencies but also in addressing the vulnerabilities. Second thing is disability inclusivity and accessibility. I think that is also very important, and practical ideas were also discussed. For example, what kind of buildings and what kind of facilities should be there, and how do we bring them in the mainstream with due respect. So I think that is very important, because in Indian ancient system also we believe that everything is there to celebrate. Even the differences are the variations. Everything is to celebrate. So basically that is we have to look at the positive side of that, the abilities that Ira was referring to. So that is, I think, very important. So disability should not be allowed to make the weaknesses, and rather we have to promote the abilities. So based on that, the new approaches of planning, new approaches of local government has to be brought in. Then youth-led initiative, that is another very important and very strong component of our society, more particularly the Indian society. India is different in the world because of the youth power. So how do we look at that? And within youth, in fact, we had some publications jointly with UNICEF on the urban poor, and within urban poor, the peri-urban poor, and within peri-urban poor, the girl child, basically. So the vulnerability of children, and within that, vulnerability of girl child. That is entirely different. Dr. Krishna also participated in those publications. So I think these kind of things also has to be seen, and then only we will be able to use various technological innovations along with the social innovations and governance, and then we'll be able to solve the problem. And the fourth point that comes, that has emerged, that addressing socio-economic equality. And here also addressing socio-economic equality, that is on the surface that we see socio-economic equality, inequality, and then various schemes of government and the community-led initiatives also referred in. But here also again we have to go back and look at the root cause. Many times there are reasons which are rich in natural resources, but the people are poor. People are socially deprived. So basically we'll have to see that what kind of market-led initiative, what kind of the cooperative initiatives, like the example that comes started in Rajasthan. So this kind of initiatives have to be promoted. Then community engagement and local resilience. I think that is very important, that the local connect and engaging community-based planning. So how do we relook at the community-based disaster risk reduction interventions? And disaster risk reduction many times maybe without the using word disaster. So all the forms of development, all the forms of when we talk about the empowerment, directly or indirectly contributes to reducing disaster risk. So basically we'll have to see that. And the way forward, so five key points, I would not be elaborating, just reading out. One is that integrating gender responsive policies. Second is accessible infrastructure. Third is youth engagement programs. Fourth is economic empowerment. And final is the localized disaster plans. And then finally, basically when we are entering into a new regime, we have almost entered partly, that is a kind of a phase of disruption. So disruptive technology, and also a great social disruption where we are connected to each other through electronic gadgets more rather than in person. So how do we see the addressing gender concerns, addressing disability and other concerns in a new digital world? Basically we should not forget this reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. discussed. And now, before a very short vote of thanks, there are two important announcements. एक आपके तन के लिए है और दूसरा आपके मन के लिए है। तन के लिए भूख लगी होगी, खाना इस तरफ है, और मन के लिए कि आपको इतना श्रम आपने दिया, समय दिया, उसके लिए सर्टिफिकेट आपका लाइब्रेरी में इंतजार कर रहा है। लेकिन खाना खाने के बाद में, क्योंकि खाना इंतजार नहीं करेगा, खत्म हो जाएगा, सर्टिफिकेट वही रहेगा, तो आप अपना सर्टिफिकेट जरूर कलेक्ट करिएगा। Now I invite Nephele to be given.
Thank you, August Kathy. Although the event to commemorate the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction has come to an end, but the zeal, enthusiasm and the thought-provoking discussions that we had and the ideas generated out of this event should turn into a rolling stone impact. With that, I wish to thank the organizers, NIDM, Shri Rajendra Kumar, dignitaries on the dais, Dr. Santosh Kumar, Uma Devi ji, International Organization ILO Head, Madam Vinita Sahai, Dr. A.K. Cocos, my director, esteemed members on the other side of the dais, Dr. Anil Kumar, Shri Ranjit, Shri Amarjit Sinha ji, for their presence and their gracing the occasion so well. I will not stand between you and your lunch. Thank you so much for having us here, and thank you students for the wonderful presentation and wonderful video.
Before we break for lunch, I would request all of you to give a standing ovation to all the panelists.
Except me and Santosh, please.
ऑफ कर दो। अरे रुको यार, रुको, चलो इसको भी लाएंगे क्या? लंच दिखाएं, लंच